Let's go, let's go. If you just let go.
Specifically in California, there are certain propositions that we have the ability to vote for. I know me and you talked off air on some of the ones that are more important. So don't want to talk about all of them because we don't have enough time to talk about every single one. But can we kind of go through some of those just so we can see? Because some of these people are opening up these ballots for the first time, and they're like, "What the hell am I voting for? What is yes? What does no mean? What is this? What is this?" So can we go through some of those and just kind of talk about the importance of those? Okay, so the first one that we wanted to bring up was what, Prop 16?
Yeah, and I want to give you guys and your listeners just kind of a little bit of an overview first. Sure. So it's interesting, man. Like, we have an opportunity to vote on propositions that impact our state, and something that I think that we need to keep in mind is that it is so important to be informed. Mm-hmm. Whether that means you read the Black Lives Voter Guide, whether you read the Cal Matters at a Glance, whether you're reading the Disability Rights California Voter Guide, League of Women Voters Voter Guide. There's voter guides, BOAPA Voter Guide. There's different voter guides that can give you different information on all of these issue areas. One in particular that I used is I want to track who's spending money to support which issue. I think that's still the best way to determine for yourself which side you want to be on if you aren't sure what each proposition means.
So who's funding which measure, basically?
Exactly. So if you're thinking about a measure, if you're thinking about a measure and you're looking at, okay, one side is yes and they're all corporations, and the other side is no and they're all labor, they're all community groups, they're all individual citizens. It's like, which side am I more likely to side with?
Laborers.
Right. And so it's just an easy way, in my opinion, to, if you don't know kind of what exactly each measure is saying, you can at least go by, okay, who's spending a bunch of money on this, and why would they be spending a ton of money on yes or a ton of money on no, and then let me make my decision.
That's such a great way to put that, because it does put in perspective on, not to be condescending, but like a layman terms way of thinking about it, right? The corporation is definitely there to make money for the corporation at whatever cost, right? And then, like you said, with the laborers and the workers, they want the best for their lives,
right?
Which in turn impacts the corporation's overhead. So I think that was a great way to put that, because I pay attention to a lot, and I've never even thought about it like that. Right. That's genius.
Yep.
Eric, I got a question for you.
Yes.
Okay, so Prop 21. I don't mean to jump ahead. Prop 21, rent control, right?
I thought we was going over Prop 16.
So we're gonna, we're gonna get there.
I fell asleep. I'm sorry.
So we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. So we're gonna go over Prop 16, Prop 21, Prop 22, Prop 25.
Prop 16 is
so
major.
Prop 16, which is the end in the ban on affirmative action.
Yes. So California years ago had affirmative action for a long, long time. My parents still talk about the reason that they got into the schools that they got into, in large part, was because there was affirmative action in California. They were able to take advantage of that affirmative action and go to some of the best schools in the state. University of California, of course, as a school system, is the top public school system in the world. And UC Berkeley, UCLA, all these schools that are top public universities in the country and in the world are right here in California. UC Davis is one of the best schools in the world. And Black folks, Latinos, women, other folks who are of different minority groups, different ranges of diversity, were given opportunities to have their their race or background as part of the influence in terms of whether they would be included in this
Got
process.
it.
That was taken away years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and this specific measure, Prop 16, would end that ban. So essentially, on one side, you have um, uh, ending the ban that would make give minorities an additional advantage, an additional space when it comes to being included in both school and jobs. And on the other side, you have essentially treating all Californians equally. So you have black folks and white folks being in the same at the same level essentially, regardless of race, regardless of sex, regardless of color, ethnicity, national origin.
Got it.
So that's pretty much how that one breaks down.
Okay,
I can
so
hear a
so
lot of
for
hate on that one.
so for our audience, we're mostly black people that's probably listening, or people that are from the culture. So we're gonna
You better be voting yes.
we're gonna go through the props, and I think probably just to kind of get us, because I think a lot of people are already intimidated just with the voting process. We're gonna vote. What do you think we should vote, and give us a reason why it's important for us. So 16 sounds like
Yes.
that would be a yes.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
you scared me. I was like, we got to get him off the phone right now.
Hey, the funny thing is, I'm able to kind of within a certain aspect. I'm not an elected official.
Right, we know.
I'm not somebody who has to be completely, nonpartisan.
Right.
And actually, my organization, the organization that I work for, Disability Rights California, has a voter guide where we have suggestions on the propositions.
Right.
And one of the propositions that we have put out a position on is Prop 16, and we've put out a yes on Prop 16.
Perfect.
Nice.
So I can not only say, personally, as an African American male,
Right.
but I can also say, the organization that I work for supports
Supports
yes
16.
on Prop
Yeah,
16.
yeah. So that includes disabilities. That includes sexual preference, sexual orientation, the whole
So
nine,
this-
right? For that affirmative action,
So
or is that
this
just
one-
race?
So this one doesn't. This one's just it's race, sex, color, ethnicity, national origin.
Got it.
AKA I win.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And white women are gonna lose their minds. I could get in, but because I'm a woman, but I won't because I'm white. Yeah.
Well, so let me
White is already working in your favor.
Like,
and then so real quick question, because
Susie.
I'm not the smartest guy in the room in this situation, or usually ever, right? Because I like
You hear the asterisks in this situation.
in this situation I'm not.
I'm
There's
usually the
people smarter at
smartest,
the
but
table
there's-
and smarter on the Zoom. So from my understanding, the demographic that have benefited the most from affirmative action in the past have been white women.
Yeah, so it's interesting. White women definitely have benefited, and another group that. So I actually, when I was a legislative advocate earlier this year, I was working on this issue in the state capitol, and when I tell you guys won't be surprised which groups came out in large numbers against affirmative action. They were largely Asian groups from throughout the state who came out in huge numbers saying that they did not want to ban that they wanted to keep the system the way it is, that they did not want to end the ban on affirmative action.
Very interesting.
No, it makes sense.
It does make sense, but it's still interesting.
And there were a number of groups. It was all throughout the state, from Southern California, Northern California. They took hours explaining why everybody should be treated equally. And as we know, those of us who
Asians.
pay any attention to the University of California system
completely
and the
Asians.
students who attend the
Most of them are
University of
Asian.
California, they have a bunch of Asians, both Asian immigrants and Asian Americans all throughout the UC system. So there's no surprise.
Interesting.
I had a
There's no
workplace
surprise that they-
experience with an Asian woman. Without giving away an identity or anything like that, what I found was that they are okay as long as like we don't do better than them.
Facts.
And she couldn't take that I was making more than her, that I had a position of power and influence and she didn't. She didn't know how to talk to me. And that's how you can always tell someone's anti-blackness. They don't know how to celebrate with you. They don't know how to talk about your blackness in a way that's good. And they don't know how to not be competitive because the simple fact that you are right there is a threat to their existence and they don't know what to do.
I have a bunch of Asian friends, and because we're friends, we have these kind of conversations often, right? And they'll tell you straight up that if you're not going to marry an Asian, you marry a white person, because they believe that the closer they get to white, the more powerful they become.
And they've done a very good job of distancing themselves from
the rest
anything,
of the minorities.
Right, the rest of the minorities.
That's true.
And to me, sometimes with Asian people, it's like they're white people with culture. You know what I'm saying? Because they carry a lot of the same ideology. You know what I'm saying? And we've seen like in nail shops and in hair stores how violent, they've some of them have been towards black women and black people, and they come into our neighborhoods and they build shops, they build restaurants, they take our dollars.
They don't hire none of us.
That's
You
true.
know what I'm saying?
It's facts. That's what it's the same conversation of why certain minority groups vote the way that they do, because that's their ideology
again,
underneath it all.
like I said,
even though that they're a minority.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Even though they're minority, they don't want to be
They
the
still
lower tier
separate
minority.
them. So I'm not like the black.
No,
Right.
Right.
I might be brown, but I ain't black.
Right.
Right. And that's what it
Well,
boils down to.
Yeah, that's facts.
Because
All
that
right.
N-word comes out fast. We in it
Oh.
together until one of us starts doing better.
No,
Yeah.
and just the tricks of even some of the I've seen videos of like some of the stores will be charging tax on non-taxable items, and then when they get called out on it, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know." No, you didn't know.
You did know.
You did know, and you've been taking advantage of these people
Why are you
forever.
taxing people on
and
Snickers?
why are you opening those stores there?
During the beginning of COVID, when they closed the hair shops and you had to place your orders at the door, and I would ask for a certain brand of hair, they'd be like, "Oh, we don't have that. They're gonna bring me out something 3 times expensive."
Yep.
I said, "Look here." I'm not gonna say what I said.
Did you call him a nigger?
No.
What? An Asian person?
That's hilarious. They don't know how to act. I call white people at work nigger every time.
Oh my God.
They don't
No.
know.
Okay.
They don't know how to
I
act.
said, let me find out that you're exploiting black women during a pandemic to sell more hair. I will shut this store down, and you will be washing my spinning rims.
And we believe it.
2021 coming.
Nigga, they spit
When I get my check.
Let me find out.
Get
Come
my
on
check.
now.
All right. So to speed things up, Proposition 21, rent control. So voting yes on this measure would allow cities and countries to put rent control policies into place. A no on this measure would continue the process or the provisions of Costa-Hawkins. So yes or no, Eric?
So it's funny. I mean, this is one of those where I looked at the where the money was being spent. Who was spending the money.
Okay.
And as far as no goes, you got residential corporate landlords. You got communities corporate landlords. You got all these different landlords and business organizations, business groups. And on the other side, you got the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. You know what I mean? Like it's just a completely different.
I go into the landlord category.
21 though. Speaking of 21, the California NAACP president AIDS corporate prop campaigns collects $1.2 million in counting to be against Prop 21. Alice Huffman
You wanna know why?
got called to the floor
Okay.
this past week at the Capitol for taking $1.2 million personal dollars to be against Prop 21 and use the NAACP's good name to hurt black people.
Oh.
I'll say this. So I proudly used to work at the NAACP. And my own personal and my own experiences, any of that kind of stuff. What I will say is that I encourage, as I said earlier, I encourage all people, especially Black folks, to look and research on your own all of the information, and instead of relying on any organization. So whether it's the NAACP, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's any BAPAC, any organization can put out information. But I encourage everybody. We all have, access, hopefully, to some level of information, whether it's voter guides, whether it's the internet, our cell phones. So I encourage everybody to look on their own at all this information.
Yes.
And so, I just think it's really, really important. And I say that, I'm not going to say, anything yet positive or negative about the NAACP.
Oh yeah,
we should. No, we absolutely should. And I'm proud that the Black. No, I'm not saying you, but we absolutely should, because the Black Caucus. Thank God for the Black women who are leading the Black Caucus, that came forward to the Capitol. Kendra Lewis, who is the vice chair of the Black Caucus, and brought up the fact that there are too many times these older Black organizations exploit Black people for themselves. That is something that we should absolutely be having a conversation about, because it holds us back from being able to really progress forward as a community.
Because they're trusted.
There's
right,
a lot of,
because they're trusted.
There's a lot of situations where we've seen money come into the hands of organizations and it never makes it out to the public.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of those type situations. It is baffling to take money to vote against rent control as the
that is very suspect. But I think what Eric is saying is that I think that you guys are both saying the same things. He's saying you need to do the research on your own and not depend on somebody like trusting of, because I've always been able to trust an organization, I'm going to trust them every single time.
Or it's the NAACP. So what
I'm going to trust whatever they
you're
endorse.
going to assume that they're going to be in our favor.
Right.
That's the problem. People are going to look at this measure and say, well, the NAACP, and white folks love a chance out to do anything good for Black people. They're going to look and say, well, the NAACP said, and you should vote for it.
They're kind of using Cube and
they'll use anybody.
Come on, bro.
So I think that's a good point. I think that you guys are both all on the same page, and I totally agree. So rent control sounds like that's a yes.
Yeah, so
I'm
I can
not
say
voting yes for that as a landlord.
And
as a what?
As a corporate landlord.
Okay, so we need to go on to the next one.
Hey, look.
Hey.
No, I just said that because I knew she was gonna be like individualism.
Okay, so
I'm voting yes on that.
That's real though. Hey, but that's I don't mean to cut you off, bro. But on the real, Black folks, this is a great example of Black folks not being monolithic. Of Black folks, some Black folks are renting, some Black folks are the landlords. So you know what I mean? We all got different perspectives. But
the collective poverty of Black people affects Black people as a whole. Now, I know middle class America definitely has a problem with being disengaged from poor Black people. But what happens to one of us is going to affect all of us in the end, like, to be honest about it. Like, in some shape or form, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's rent, you're owning, you're renting, you know what I'm saying? If it keeps Black people in poverty, that is going to affect you in some way, somehow, eventually.
I saw the rent control thing go out the window because I work for companies that employ, I've worked on jobs for this company called Greenleaf. And in the Bay Area.
Pastor Greenleaf?
No, not Pastor Greenleaf.
I love that show.
Look.
There's a company called Greenleaf.
If it's him, he's doing great.
They own a church.
But how San Francisco avoided the rent control thing in the Bay Area control, you notice like all the masses of Black folks are now here in Sacramento, Las Vegas, Fresno, but the reason being is because they passed new laws, new legislation that said if you update your service, your electrical service, then rent control no longer applies to your building.
Right.
So they found loopholes in order to raise the rents, even though the Bay Area is rent controlled.
Well, you know what?
Right now.
And in Berkeley,
That's crazy.
I think in the 1970s, or was it the 80s? It was either 70s or the 80s, where they passed a rent control measure as well. And what they did, same thing. They found a loophole around it where they changed the apartments into condominiums.
Facts.
So condominiums are not under that rent control measure.
Yes,
so then they were able to then uncap it.
Bro, because I've updated electrical services with 200 units. Right. And when I got there, everybody's rent controlled. Everybody's still paying $1,400-$1,500 a month in the city.
Right.
By the time we're done, half the residence is gone because they've boosted the rent to $3,500 a month.
Makes sense.
Wow. Eric, you're not offended by my clapback. You're used to this heat.
I got so much love for Elika. You can clap back, girl. As I'm ready
You
for
better
you.
clap
man.
back, bro. Don't be over here being a victim. Don't be a vic. It's the reverb. Hey, you ever been in the group?
Hey,
No, that's the homie,
It's
Eric.
all
That's the
good.
homie. That's the homie.
So we've heard. So Prop 22.
Soft serve.
Rules for app-based drivers. Now I know this one. I've been getting text messages left and right for this one. Golly,
I've been so.
I wish there was a way to block them. So
How you get my phone number?
for real. So
I was just sitting here and I got a text that said maybe Dina. I'm like, who is Dina? I'm like, leave me alone.
This is Dina from Prop 24. Have you voted already?
oh man. So Prop 22. So a yes on Prop 22 would allow companies not to classify drivers as regular employees, but would require them to provide them with the benefits listed above, which there's a whole list of that. And then then a no vote on this measure would continue AB5's requirement that these drivers would be classified as employees and they would be provided the minimum wage, workers' compensation, and overtime pay. So I know we kind of talked about this one a little bit off air. So the yes or no, and why?
All right. So I voted no.
Okay.
Good, Eric.
And let me explain it. So first of all, I know if y'all seen the ads, almost every single ad is yes, right?
Yes.
And if you look at the money, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, all these big corporations are pouring in. I think I saw on the Sacramento Bee they're breaking records for the amount of money that they're spending on this proposition.
For yes, right? They're throwing money in for yes.
Yes.
Right, got it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're throwing money in for yes. So it's an easy question, at least in my opinion,
Right.
but one that people still got to break down on their own.
Right.
It's, do you want these drivers to be able to be independent contractors, or do you want them to be employees? And if they're employees, then they get certain benefits that come with being an employee, but they have certain restrictions in terms of their own individual schedules and other things.
Right.
So that's essentially where you get to break it down. And as I said, you're looking at all these corporations, Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash, and they're making threats like, "Oh, we gonna get out of California if y'all vote no on
And
this."
there's no way they're leaving.
And-
California.
They're not leaving California.
I
They
think-
did that before. They tried to say we're
Right.
gonna leave at midnight.
Yeah, they're not leaving.
Jump bikes.
Leave it.
Right,
9
and
a.m.
and I know Rob and I talked about this. It's like, I dare y'all to leave California.
Facts. Because the only place you can go is
Like,
California and
first
New
of all-
York. That's it.
Right.
Right. And it's like, first of all, if y'all leave California, somebody else gonna come right in right behind you and scoop all
Yep.
that
All
money
that
back
money.
up.
Yeah,
So it's like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Let him go.
we know how this.
Yeah,
thing
the whole purpose of being an app-based driver is to make money at your leisure on your
own
time.
Yes.
When you have the availability.
So
to do
will they
such.
still be able to do that?
No, because they're gonna be on hourly. If you vote yes, then they'll get hours.
They'll be
hourly.
considered employees.
They'll be minimum wage. They'll be minimum wage employees.
So the company would then dictate your schedule,
And
but you would receive benefits. So
Will it be an option?
no.
It would just be.
to me,
I
companies,
mean, I don't do it. See, this is the thing that where I was coming from. I'm like, I don't do it. I know a lot of people that are
don't
that
do it
it has got them through this time right now to
Right.
be able to turn that app on
Right.
and make some money. And I know some people would rather keep it that way.
Right.
Well, think about this though. If you're a minimum wage employee in California, it's at $13 an hour, $13, $14. Is it 15?
I think it may. I think they're in in the years
process.
to getting it up to 15.
So think,
it'll go up to
think about
15.
that, or you can drive 2 or 3 Lyfts or Ubers in that hour's time and make $45, $50. You know what I mean? So it's really a disadvantage for people to want to be a minimum wage employee.
Right. And I think when me and Eric were talking, I think all the labor unions or the people that were backing up, the money was going towards voting no. So to me, if they're voting no and you're the ones that's working, I'm voting with you.
That's where I was coming from, because I'm like, at the end of the day, this is basically a vote on something that doesn't necessarily affect me, because I don't.
But it does affect you, because future app-based situations and employment gigs, they're gonna follow the model of Uber and Lyft.
Well, I mean, I'm saying as far as I want to vote with the people.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
I want to vote with the people.
Right. And as we know, I mean, being an employee, you also get sick leave, you get health care, you potentially, if you need unemployment, you can get unemployment. There's a list of benefits that you get as an employee versus an independent contractor.
Right. But most people are, I think a ton of people have regular jobs first, that they're already getting benefits or so on and so forth, and they just use these as a means to supplement more income.
Right. Well, and
more
during the
people would
pandemic.
do it.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
More people would do it because it would give them access to benefits. Like, it's easy to do. It's easy to do Uber. You don't really got to fill out an application or interview. So I think this is going to give a lot of people an opportunity to have health care.
That too, yeah.
You think they're going to pay them health care at minimum wage?
I mean, what are the benefits that they're talking about?
Man, that's
I get it. I'm sorry. I think what I was just saying was the opposite. No, they would be employees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yes would
Right.
be
No,
that they.
no.
Go ahead.
Right. No is they would be employees.
Right.
And yes is they would be independent.
They would stay
contractors.
independent
I
contractors.
would
Got
like
it.
them to
Got it.
stay
And
independent
obviously, Uber and
You
Lyft
think so?
are pushing the money towards yes because they don't want to come out of pocket and pay for the benefits and for all the things that come with
And
that.
I guarantee they're making more
and
than
to
enough.
me,
They're making a
to me,
lot.
they were trying to make it seem like, oh well, if you guys vote no, then they're not going to be able to make their own schedules and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, that's not true, because the same way that during the pandemic, prior to the pandemic, all these companies were saying there's no way that you can work from home, and then pandemic pop up. Oh, hey, we're all working from home.
Yep.
So same thing with here. They're going to
figure.
find a way for them to be able to make their own schedules because they don't want to lose the workforce
Right.
that is going to bring them the money.
Right.
So the onus should be on the company to make it work, not on the employees to make it work
Right.
outside of what the
Especially
corporation
because
is.
picking a
Facts.
job is a choice.
Yes.
So, you're not, I'm offering you my services to help you make money. Not
Exactly.
you offering me
Exactly.
money for my, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So no, and then I think the other good thing about that too, I think in that measure they would have better background checks too, correct?
I believe so. Yes.
I that's one of the things, like with my wife or with anybody
my
that's driving
kids,
Uber or Lyft,
sisters.
you want to make sure who's driving got some sense. You know what I mean? So,
That's real.
so okay, 25. This is the last one. So the repeal of cash bail. So a vote yes on this measure would end cash bail in California and replace it with a new pre-trial release system. A vote on no would keep California's cash bail system as it is. I think this one's pretty clear, pretty easy.
Yeah, this one I can even say personally and through my organization again, yes is the decision that was made.
Wish they had that
and
when
this
I
is
went to
another
jail.
example.
I wish they had that when I was in there.
Okay.
I had to goddamn pay them people back.
And again, this is another one. Oh man, this is another one, man. When you look at who's spending the money on no, you looking at bail bonds, this Aladdin bail bonds, bail bonds company.
Padilla.
that.
Padilla,
And it's
goddamn,
like,
curse you, Padilla. I want my money back.
Golly.
They will go
It's a predatory business, definitely.
It's very predatory.
It's exactly.
Bro,
it's a predatory
You
business,
can't,
and we
you
know,
can't get
we
qualified
know-
for a car
no.
loan, but you could damn sure get qualified for a bail.
Right.
Oh my God.
Come
You
on
can't
now.
you can't get a
That's-
credit
And
card
we
at Walmart, but you can damn sure get bail.
Right.
Goddamn Padilla.
Well,
And we know how messed up.
go ahead, Eric. I'm
We
sorry.
know how messed up the system. We know how messed up the system is, anyways. I mean, y'all know. I went to law school. I studied law, and we know how messed up the justice system is.
trash.
We know how messed up, criminal justice is in the United States, and we know that forcing people to pay money to get out of jail is just a messed up system. It is inherently discriminatory against poor people, against people who can't afford, the extra money to be able to spend on being able to get out of jail.
Right.
So, so that system just in general is messed
And
up.
if you're innocent, you don't even get the money back.
No, facts.
So
Well, and
you
most people are
bailed
committing
out.
crimes to get money anyway, bro.
Exactly.
I'm broke, dog. That's how I got here.
That's why I robbed the bank.
That's how I got
For
here.
real.
I'm broke.
All right. Okay, so we went through all the propositions. Next question that I got for you, 'cause I think you already answered the previous one as far as kind of what your voting process looks like. Just as far as what I've noticed and what I've seen from you. So you always seem to fight for those who don't have a voice. Can you speak to us about the importance of including not only just black people, but people with disabilities into your conversation about equal rights?
Man, I know we spoke about it earlier, but I really want to keep hammering this in, that people with disabilities, first of all, the numbers of people with disabilities is always going to be far less than the actual number. So the number of people that identify as a person with a disability is always going to be way lower than the actual number. There are some statistics out there that say 40 to 50% of Americans have some level of disability. As I said earlier, whether it's a cognizant, whether it's a mental health disability, whether it's a psychiatric disability, a learning disability, we all probably at least know somebody, or have somebody within our family who have some visible disability, and then somebody else who we don't know, or a number of people who have invisible disabilities. And so, these are people that don't always feel comfortable disclosing because of the stigma against people with disabilities. We hear all the time, folks talking bad about somebody with a mental health disability.
That's true.
Somebody, oh man, that's so-and-so, he's crazy.
Yep.
Or right. All the terms, or he's retarded. Some of the terms that we've heard over the years, that when somebody hears it, when somebody with a disability hears that, they're like, man, I don't want to put myself out there.
Right.
I'd rather just stay. I'd rather just stay hidden. And when that happens, it gets reinforced over and over again. And my life has been dedicated to making sure that those people feel comfortable and are brought to the table when decisions are being made. And
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. And oftentimes, those people also intersect with race. Oftentimes they are women. Oftentimes they can be members of the LGBTQ community. And it's just so crucial that those voices are not only heard, but that they're respected and empowered. That we're not just, oh yeah, you could be in the room back in the corner and, go play over there with some other people. It's like, no, man, you deserve to be sitting right up here with everybody else.
Yep.
And you deserve to have a say-so in how decisions are being made.
Man, especially because of the perspective. You know what I mean? And the perspective. I think people don't, we don't take advantage of the perspective that people from different walks and different lifestyles bring. And man, it's crazy.
Well, and I think what we were saying earlier, I think Elika brought up that point, is that just because you may look different or be different than somebody else, that does not devalue your life, your voice, or your opinion. And why do we look at it like that? That just because, like you said, that maybe somebody's in a wheelchair, that he doesn't have something important or something that can help everybody out to say. And when you start muting people's voices just based off of what they look like, then what kind of society are we building?
Well, that's how you built America.
Well,
that's the American ideology, right? The American ideology is survival of the fittest, and who it's capitalism. So whoever has the most money, whoever has this, whoever has that, right? And so, and like you said, the American dream is a wealthy, rich, blonde, white man. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with the disabilities. It's the same thing with sexual orientation. You know what I'm saying? So all those things, like you said, they intersect. That's a great way to put it. Categorically, they all intersect into falling under white supremacy.
Exactly. So,
damn, Eric, you got bars, bro.
I really want to challenge. I know that we have some great leaders who are a part of this podcast. Great leaders who listen to this podcast, who pay attention to this podcast, and I want to challenge, especially all of us who are Black, to look at ourselves, look at our organizations that we're a part of, and ask yourself, man, how many times has there been a person with a disability at the table when we're making decisions?
Never.
How many times, should I have, asked, man, what's the deaf perspective? What's the disability perspective? What's the what's the mental health impact on this issue? Or what if somebody had a learning disability? How would they be able to figure this thing out? And just think through that. It's not something that always comes natural, if you're not around it, if you're not in that space. But I just want to encourage all of you guys and all of your listeners to just consider it as often as you can, where you're saying, man, I wonder what the disability perspective might be on this. The same way that we want to be included when big decisions are being made, I encourage you all to do the same when it comes to disability.
Yeah, you asked a good question, man. Even like I said, again, I'm in the construction field, and when we're doing these ADA projects, I've never seen a person with a disability in the engineering room.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I've never seen a person with a disability come out and actually, they have their inspectors and they have the regular everyday test, but he's absolutely right. I've never seen when we got to do this for people with disabilities, right. But I've never actually seen a person with a disability as the inspector, which would be the best inspector.
In the room of the conversation, when you're doing a project for a specific demographic,
you should definitely have that demographic present.
Is not in the room.
Facts.
That's
wow.
fact. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Bars.
Yep.
Eric, you got bars,
Eric,
bro.
man, you got bars, man. So, final question before we get into some fun, man. So while I have you and Elika both here, because you guys are both prominent voices in Sacramento and outside, actually just prominent voices just for all of California, what are some important measures, because there's a lot of people from Sacramento that will be listening to this podcast, what are some important measures and or candidates that we cannot afford not to vote yes for or endorse? Because we already know that local elections are far more impactful than the presidential election, and it seems like we spend a lot of our energy on what Trump is saying or not saying, or what Biden is saying or not saying. So we got to get out and actually vote locally. So what are some Sacramento topics that are on the docket that we cannot afford to not look into?
So I vote. I use the Sacramento Sister Voter Guide.
Oh, hold on.
Man, listen, like Dr. Addie and Kula and April Jean and Dr. Flo are some of the most brilliant political minds.
Absolutely.
I know I'm leaving somebody out, but some of the most brilliant political minds that we have the luxury that they are doing this work for free to research all of this and give us the best answers that are going to help Black people.
Yes.
And Black women.
Shout them
and so
out.
I hold close the Sacramento Sister Voter Guide, and I implore white people all the time to say that you support Black women, that you need to vote like Black women. And so I always use the Sacramento Sister Voter Guide, but there's a couple of things happening in Sacramento right now that's kind of shady with some of these measures. And like one of them is Measure C. That's rent control, right, Eric? Am I wrong? It's rent control.
That's right.
And we're finding that the same thing that's happening on the state is happening locally with there's rich companies that don't want it to pass. And so we have to make sure that we're paying attention to where those dollars are flowing.
Is that yes or no on Measure C?
Oh, it's a yes.
Period.
Yes.
No, well, I wanted her to say it for the show.
Oh, yes,
sure.
on Measure C. And also the Strong Mayor Initiative, Measure A. If Darrell Steinberg gets that Strong Mayor Initiative, that fool is going to turn into Lord Farquaad, and we're all going to be back on a bus out at Shrek's place.
So yes or no on Measure A?
No.
No on Measure A.
A hell no.
Hell to the no.
If you write
Hell
hell no,
no.
they're not
I
going to
think-
count
I
your
think-
vote.
To the no.
I think on the sister guide, I think they actually put hell no on there.
They did. I was so just the whole thing. Just reading it was enjoyable.
It was
'Cause I'm
dope.
like,
It's beautiful.
This is like
Only the way that black people can do it.
right, exactly. I'm like,
Only
this
yeah.
is hitting my spirit. Just the way that it
Yes.
was just.
Yeah.
It was for us.
portrayed.
It was
Right,
by us
for
for
us.
us.
Like,
Yes.
Fubu me
seriously.
right now, bro.
I was like, thank you for posting
They
this. Like,
came all the way through with this voter guide.
So we will post that, so that way, if you guys wanted to look at that, for you guys that are in Sacramento, that and there was a lot. It actually went into Placer County and a bunch of other neighboring counties as well. So we will make sure that is available for those that are listening to the show. Is there any other?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I had a really interesting experience on Facebook yesterday. I was just strolling through like I normally do, and I saw this white lady with these 2 black children.
For the school district board.
For a school district board.
I saw it.
So her name is Jessie Ryan.
Oh
my God.
Ari laughed.
So I took what she posted because she was complaining about people making comments about her tokenizing her black children. Right? These white tears were flowing. And so I posted. So I'm teaching an online class of it's a couple hundred white people all over the world that I'm teaching unpacking racism. And so I posted what she posted in there, and one woman said something that was really, really, really good. She said, "This is the most dangerous type of white woman." She has, because her covert racism is so slick. Unless you start really looking at what she's saying, because what she's saying is that I'm a savior. How can I be racist?
Didn't Malcolm X? Didn't he warn us about that?
Yeah.
He said that a white liberal is way more dangerous than a white conservative.
Absolutely. And the way she is going about this race.
You should thank me because I have these black children. I should have the black vote.
Right. And she inboxed me and shared some very deeply personal things about her children that a white mother should not ever be talking about their black kids' trauma the way that she did. Yes, I'm going in right now because I'm livid, and I saw this happen with the last school board race with Cecile Nunley running against Kevin McCarty's wife. That well, she's a white Latino, but these educated, overqualified black women up against these progressive sounding and looking white women, and she's talking about she's the I think she's the president of the school of SCUSD, and she's going for District 8 or 7, I think, which is Oak Park. You mean to tell me that Becky knows more about Oak Park than Lavinia Grace Phillips, who has been endorsed by the Teachers Association and the Nurses Association?
How dare you?
She does not.
How dare you?
yeah, because she has black children.
How dare you?
Because she
You
has
can
black
have black
children.
children and still be
I
racist.
bet
What
you
she
I bet you
doesn't-
they don't live
right.
in the P.
Your
I bet you they don't live in the
proximity-
P.
No, your proximity to blackness does not cure your racism.
No.
Nope.
And it's that white savior complex
Yes.
of her annoyance. How dare anyone question my motives when I have saved these black poor children?
That's
I'm
the
not
same-
even going to share what she told me about her daughter, but I said, you should be ashamed of yourself. You need to be taught. Proximity to blackness does not cure racism.
Isn't that what we said about what's her name, who was healing people to heal herself?
Yeah,
Right? It's the
Jada.
same
That's
thing.
not gonna help you.
It's the same
And
thing.
Amy, the Supreme Court judge, that's Amy, whatever her name is. I just know Amy because that's
what's showing up.
she
yeah.
talked about her black children the same way, did the tokenizing, and I commented, like, you have to be conscious of the historical way that white women have exploited black children like handbags.
Right.
No, you can't parade your children around.
No.
And yes, you do.
No.
So no, you don't get to play by the same rules because you chose black children. You can't complain about how white people are able to take pictures with their kids because them are white kids.
Right.
You chose black children.
Yeah.
And I feel bad. I feel bad for those kids.
You wanted the life, now eat it all.
Well,
Eat it
see,
all.
but it's nasty because it makes you think, did you pick black children
On
as a
purpose.
strategic?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? But that's what I'm saying. So it makes it even more disgusting because you did not save them for their own good. You did it because it was a photo op for you, and it looked good on paper because now, I can appeal to black voters because I have black children. I know what it's like. But
I'm
you don't
play
know what
for
it's like.
you what she said, okay? And now this is what I said about overt and covert racism. What she said sounds good, especially if you're white and you don't know no better.
You have a U.S. Oh, I can't do it. Never mind.
I don't know if it's gonna work. I'm gonna play it.
I just want to begin by sharing that my husband reminded me the other day that I have spent 2 months of evenings and weekends away from my children over the course of the last year. And he reminded me that because he said, I hope you understand that what you're doing on the board must make a difference. It must make a difference to upend a system that has for decades failed students who look just like my children. Okay. And we have allowed that system to be inequitable by design due to a lack of courage and appetite to have the courageous conversations and make the necessary changes to focus on children. I love our teachers and have many teacher friends throughout the school district, some of whom have come to me and said this ugly and painful rhetoric must stop. And when I looked at my husband and said the sacrifices are worth something, I have said I will be able to look my children in the eyes one day and say, I refuse to accept a system that didn't serve our children. I refuse to accept a system that didn't focus on student achievement as the center of everything we do.
Okay.
Bullshit.
Girl.
Bro.
There's a lot to unpack right there.
Listen.
I, me,
Listen.
my. Yeah.
Listen, your children, look them in the eye. I refuse my children. Nigga, you ain't slick. We see through all that bullshit.
I don't even know what to say. So that's
I'm gonna give you 2 chihuahuas, bro.
So she's voting. So she's running in the Oak Park district. We need to.
Yeah, she's basically saying, I'm going to save these black children, and in 20 years, I'll be able to look them in the face and say, I'm a good white person. Look what I've done.
She's going to save the children of Oak Park the same way that she saved their children.
But I think the last thing I'm going to say is what's most troubling about her is that she is very good at articulating racism. But and this is very typical of white women, they can be very good at articulating oppression and how it affects black people, except how their own racism perpetuates the same systems they're trying to change. And until sis can talk about her privilege and how her ideology affects black people, I don't need you speaking for my
because
people.
it's easy for her to find the disadvantages of being black, right? And then parade around how I've saved 2 black children from those
and not speak on her privilege and
how it exactly.
And
that's what you need to be talking about.
And how white terrorism tears black families apart in the first place. Yeah. You're not saving anything.
Yeah.
All you're doing is
riveting.
Exactly. It's gonna make you making it up for somebody's fault.
Right.
Exactly.
And taking up space.
Perfect.
Thank you, Becky.
Look at Eric, bro. Eric is like, man, look at him.
All right, Eric. Who?
And Maureen Craft, Elk Grove. She would be the first black woman elected to city council in her district. Is District 3 in Elk Grove is huge.
Yes.
Okay.
And she follows us on Instagram. I was gonna vote.
She's
for her.
dope. She's dope. She's really dope. She's really dope.
And if Maureen, if you are listening, you are always welcome on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, like the next one.
Yeah. So, Eric, any important measures that us here living in Sacramento need to pay attention to outside of measure A and C?
Hey man, y'all killed that one.
Okay.
So I don't even need to give too much more. I think that measure A is an interesting thing because Mayor Kevin Johnson, who used to be our mayor, had certain or was trying to also do strong mayor, and it was voted no, 53 to 47. Some years ago. It's come back now. I think it was 6 years ago when they tried to do strong mayor.
Right.
And I it's interesting because essentially the system that we have now um, makes the mayor one of 9 city council members.
Right, he's a glorified city council member.
Right.
We don't
So,
like that.
so something to keep in mind because that's the case. We have a city manager, and I know Rob, what the city manager is capable of doing. You know what the city manager does. I'd encourage all of you guys and all of your listeners to look up who the city manager of Sacramento is. Look up how that person gets selected. And something that is important to keep in mind, the city manager makes more money than the mayor does. The city manager makes $250,000 a year. And most people in Sacramento don't know who the city manager is.
Howard Chan. And people don't realize that the police, Chief Han, reports directly to Howard Chan.
Yeah.
If there was a police officer that could have been fired, Howard Chan could have told the chief, fire him.
Right.
But Howard goes underneath the radar.
Right.
He's an administrator, basically. He goes underneath the radar. He's not a politician like that where he's, he's appointed. Am I right, Eric?
Right. He's appointed by the city council. So I say all that just to say, like, please at least look up who the city manager is. Look up how, ways that we can either hold the city manager accountable if we need to. So in situations where we do want a police officer to be either fired or reprimanded, we want to know, okay, who do we need to hold accountable if that's something that we want to see get done? And if it doesn't get done, what can we do as voters, as citizens in Sacramento? What can we do to follow up to make sure that something happens next time or whatever the case might be? And
to be clear, just because I know somebody's probably going to ask this, city manager, that's not a termed position. That is the position that you are employed as long as the council wants you employed, correct? So that's not something that we have a decision on, which is why I think me and you were talking about that strong mayor measure, where if we vote basically that we don't want the strong mayor measure, that again, the council will keep the city manager employed as long as they are wanting to keep him employed.
Right, that's absolutely correct. So I just encourage everybody to look at that, to recognize what the city manager's power currently is, who the city manager is, and kind of what that process is. Just so we're all informed. I don't want people to think that just because we're all in favor of voting no on strong mayor, that means that we as people will have more power. Because the mayor doesn't, but the city manager still got power. So I just want to make sure that people all are informed as best they can, especially Elika. I know you've seen those city council meetings that can go on for hours and hours, just yelling and berating city council members or the mayor for a number of reasons, but the city manager ain't ever getting berated in that way. And in many situations, the city manager is at home.
Exactly. The person we should be mad at. And I think Dr. Flo would be a great city manager. I'm just going to put that out there.
Oh, yeah.
Because Howard Chan, and we talked about the anti-blackness in the Asian community. I would say that his response to police shootings in Sacramento is very reflective and indicative of how Asian Americans view black people, that we're not deserving of justice.
This is the third time we've made it to this conversation.
Now, mind you, we got some real strong allies in the Asian community. I want to bring that up. Mai Vang is a huge ally to black people. Mai Vang is amazing in how she stands up for black people and how she also checks her own people about their own anti-blackness. So we need those kind of allies.
Yes, absolutely. And I agree. Please, I encourage everybody. I know we talked about measures on here, but look at the candidates who are running for city council. I mean, we know that city council and your local school boards, those are the people that make decisions in your local communities that really impact you on a daily basis. I mean, you look at how your school system is doing, and I know a number of you guys have young children. And it's important that we have people with diverse backgrounds, people who are intellectual, people who understand our community in these positions. And at the city council level, making sure that each city council member is actually from the community that they represent, that they embrace, especially the members of the community who need to have representation in City Hall. So just keep all these things in mind. The measures are really important, but so are the elected officials and the representatives that we put into City Hall and into our school boards to make sure that they're representing our interests as well.
Absolutely, man. Thank you, Eric, man, for all your knowledge, for giving us all that information. As what he said, as what we all say here on the podcast, to make sure that you are informed when you are making any decision. And just even in school, I was always taught to do the research on my own, because you never want to trust the source that's giving you the information. You always want to do your own independent research. So when you're voting, a lot of times you're voting to put your taxes to work. So whatever your money's going to, you need to know where it's going, who's handling it, and why is it going to where, and who's funding it. So
and also stay informed, not just during voting time.
Oh man,
because somebody was just saying, I forgot what I was looking at, but they were saying you wouldn't give an accountant your money and then come back in 4 years and be like, oh, what did you do with it?
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you supposed to be.
Because we got the primaries. We're going to be voting for delegates soon. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of different things.
Go to these meetings. They public.
It's
public.
On Zoom, because
that too. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, stay informed and not just wait until it's
Throughout
time.
the whole time.
Right.
And you don't gotta know everything. Just know like what you're supposed to know for where you live. Like I
That.
don't have to know about all the districts.
Right.
I mean, I like to know because I like to, voice my opinion. But all I gotta know is who's the council member in my district, who's my rep, who's my congressperson, and like who my school board people are. Like those are
and Elika, I would challenge you on that one just to say there are certain members outside of our districts that we should hold even to a higher standard, and those are the Black members.
Okay.
The Black members throughout the state of California. I know, Dr. Shirley Weber represents San Diego, but she represents Black people.
Yes.
She represents Black women.
Yes.
She represents Black children. She represents Black families. Yes. And she, among all the other Black women who are in the state assembly, our city council has several Black men. These Black men need to be held to a higher standard.
Absolutely.
They not only represent their districts, but they represent Black people in Sacramento.
And they haven't done a good job. And we're just going to go ahead and say that. We have three grown-ass Black men on our city council, and the state of our communities is absolute, utter garbage. And so what have they done other than exploit our people for votes? Because we support our Black men. Because we know, like, if they win, or what we're told, if they win, then we win. That's how it's supposed. That is our social contract. But they've broken that social contract, and they need to be held accountable for that.
Let's go. If you just let's go. If you just let